In this video, which is going to be the second part of chapter 6, we will study about the control structure repetition. Now, in programming terms, a repetition control structure can be also called as an iteration control structure, or it can be also called as a looping control structure. Now, this control structure is used when you have to repeat a task again and again in your program. So in the example program on the right side, you can see I'm going to print the multiples of 5. So here, I have written my print statement 5 times to complete this task. You can see here. So the first print statement will print 5, the next will print 10, it goes on until 25. But once you study repetition control structure, you can achieve the same output by writing only one print statement and making it work again and again 5 times. So that is the aim of this video. Okay, so looping constructs are used to perform a repeated task again and again. Now in this video we'll be studying about two looping construct which is defined in Python. The first one is called as for loop and the second one is called as while loop. Now first we will discuss about for loop. Right? Now for loop is used to repeat over the set of values in a sequence. Right? We have studied that there are 3 types of sequence in the previous chapter. Now when can we use a for loop? Now for example, if you want to print all letters of the word lens learn, you can use a for loop to do this, right? Or any word, whatever you want. If you want to print each character one at a time, you can use a for loop and you can do that. Okay, we have this example coming, we'll see that. Now you can also use for loop to repeat over the set of values in a range. Now range is a particular function. We will study function in the coming chapters. So just understand a range is something which can generate a set of values which can be used inside the for loop for your program to proceed. Right? So you can use range to print the first 10 multiples of 5. So we have the example of both of this. When you see the example, you will understand it much more clearly. Now the syntax of for loop. Now I have already discussed what is the meaning of syntax. Syntax is the correct way of writing something. So if you claim that you know Python programming, then you should know the syntax of Python, right? The way you have to write a Python program, because if you don't know the syntax, then your interpreter, the Python interpreter, will give error because you have made a mistake inside the program. You didn't stick to the syntax. So our first aim is to study the syntax of for loop, or how correctly you can write a for loop inside Python. So to write a for loop, you have to use the keyword for, and followed by that, you should give a control variable. This can be any variable name. You can give control variable as I, or maybe A or J, or you can give a word that will stand as the control variable. After that, you should give the keyword in. Followed by that, you can either give a sequence, for example, a list, or you can use the range function, which will generate a list on the go and provide the value to the control variable. Now inside for, you can have the body of the loop, right? So body of the loop means a set of statements that will be executed again and again until the control variable are exhausted with all the values provided to it, either by sequence or by a range. Right? I understand that you are a little confused at this point. When we start to see the examples, things will be clear. Okay, so anyway, theoretically, this is the way you can write a correct for loop inside Python. Now, what is control variable? It controls the iteration of the loop. Okay, iteration means each pass. So based on the control variable and the sequence number, the for loop will decide I have to go around this body of loop 5 times. Okay, or maybe I have to go around 10 times. So that depends on the sequence or the range which provides the value to the control variable. Okay, so in for, if you are using a for loop, the programmer, which is you, need not change the value of the control variable. It automatically will happen as the program proceeds. But the next control structure that we are going to study, which is while, in that the programmer has to change the value by himself or herself, right? So that's the difference between for and while, right? So here in for, you don't have to change the value of control variable. Automatically control variable will be picking values from the sequence that you have provided, one at a time for each loop. Okay, now sequence can be a string, a list, or a tuple. So it's up to you. You can provide anything. So you can either give a string over here, or you can give a list over here, or you can give a tuple over here. Your for loop will collect the value from this sequence one at a time, and it will execute, right? Now range is a function. It will also generate items which you provide inside the range. So basically range will construct a list on the go and provide it to the control variable, right? Now let us go to the examples. Things will be clear to you. Now the first example that we are going to study, program 621, here we will be providing a string as the sequence, right? So this is a simple for loop. So here you can see inside for loop, the body of the for loop has only one statement which prints the value of variable letter. Now first, for loop will take the first character from the string, and that character will be loaded into the control variable. So here you should understand the control variable for us is this variable name letter. Right, so now inside for loop I will print the value of letter. So in the output, capital L will be printed. Now the control will again go back to for. That is why we call it as a looping construct. Next time for will select the next character, which is E, and will be loaded into letter, right? And now inside for loop it will print the value of letter. So in the next line I will print the output as E. Then control will again go to for loop. Now we are in the third iteration. So it will select the next value from the sequence, which is string in this case. N will be loaded into letter. Then it will say print letter. So N will be printed. So in this way, it will print the entire string that you have given there. Right, and once we select the last character, this will be loaded into letter, and then print letter will print this last character. And now the for loop understands that the entire sequence is finished. Entire sequence is finished. So now for loop will stop the execution, and now the next line inside the program that immediately follows the for loop will start, right? So now let us run this small program and see the output. So here you can see our program is ready. We have our for loop with control variable letter. You can have any variable name here, right? If you want, you can make it I, and you just have to provide I over here. This will produce the same result, right? So this is just a variable name. Any valid identifier you can give it over there. So anyway, this is the program that we are going to run. So I'll click run. So here you can see in the output it is printing len set learn, and once we reach the last n, the string is completely finished, and then for loop will stop, right? So that's how for loop works. Now in the next program we are going to study how for loop is going to work with a list, right? So here we have created a list age which has a set of ages stored in it. So we have age 6, 12, 8, 16 and 10 stored inside it. Now here you can see we have a for loop with control variable num, right? And then we have the keyword in, and after that I'm specifying the name of my list, which is age. So you can assume that now we have the value 6, 12, 8, 16 and 10 over here, right? Now when the for loop starts, the first value in the list, which is 6, will be loaded into num, and then I will print the value of num, so 6 will be printed. Now next time when the for loop runs, the second value 12 will be loaded into num, then I will print 12. Then next time when the for loop run, 8 will be printed, then 16 will be printed, then 10 will be printed. Now for loop understands the list is exhausted, it is finished, so for loop will terminate. Now you see, according to this print statement, the output is going to be in different lines. Okay, so the output will come like 6, 12, 8, 16 and 10. Right? Now what if you have to print the output like this? 6 followed by a space, 12 followed by a space, 8 followed by a space, 16 followed by a space, 10. So here you can understand the entire output comes in one single line. Right? So if you want to print the output like that, then you can use the print statement which is written over here. A normal print statement, you can see here, when you call this print statement to print something, it will print the value and then the cursor will go to the next line, so that next time when you print, the value will be printed below it. Right? You can change this by using the print statement as given in the third line. Okay, so here you are specifying to the print statement that print should end with a space. Alright, so what will happen? Now print will print the first value. After that, as you have written here end with a space, it will not go to the next line. It will just leave a space and then wait there, so that next time when the next number is getting printed, it will be printed in the same line. So now I'll execute this program first by using the first print statement, then I will run the same program using the second print statement. By seeing the output, you will understand the difference. Alright, our program is ready. You don't have to worry about this line right now because it is commented. So it is as good as I don't write this line in this program, right? Your interpreter is not going to consider this line, the last line. So now when I run the program, you can see the output is coming like this: 6, 12, 8, 16 and 10, all in different lines. Alright, so if you want the entire output to be printed in one single line with a space in between, you can use the next print statement. So I am just going to comment the first print statement, so that will not be used in my program, and I will remove the comment from the second print statement. So now I will just save this program, run it again. So here you can see the entire output comes in a straight line. Alright, so this is how you can specify the end character that will be used for print statement. Right, now if you need more spaces between them, you can specify here /t. This stands for a tab space. Right, so now if I save and run the program, you can see the output, it is far more spaced out. Right, so if you change this /t to /n, if I save it and I run it, now you can see it is printing in different lines. So /n actually stands for carriage return. So this is the character by default is used by the print statement to go to the next line. So now let us continue. So now we will study how to use a range function inside for loop. So this is a built-in function to create a list and then use the values of list so that your for loop can execute it. Right, so range function works only with integers, so you cannot provide any string value to range function. It can work with positive and negative numbers. Alright, now in a range function you have to specify three things. Okay, you can specify the start value, the stop value and the step value, which is also called as the difference. When we see the example, you will understand. So this is exclusively used inside for loop. Okay. Now this is a syntax of a range function, right? You have to use the keyword range. Now followed by that, inside the bracket, you have to specify 3 values, right? You can specify what is a start value, what is a stop value, and what is the step value, right? Now I have highlighted the start and step value. Why? Because these two are optional, right? So you can either provide a value over there or you don't have to provide a value. But stop value is mandatory, which means you have to give a stop value so that the range function can work. Okay. Now, if you don't provide a start value, range function will assume a default value of 0 to start. If you don't provide a value for step, range function will take the default value as 1. Okay, so now let me just write an example range function here and I'll show you what values it will generate inside the list. So if I write range 1, 5, 1. So what happens here is that the range will start with value 1. So this will generate the first value as 1. Then the next value will be created by adding 1 to the previous value. That is why we call the last value as step or difference. So it will add 1 to 1. So the next value is going to be 2. Then it will again add 1 to 2. So the next value is going to be 3. It will add again 1 to 3. The next value is going to be 4. And now you should understand your range function will stop generating values, right? So the value that is generated by this range function is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you will be thinking, what about 5, right? You have specified the stop value as 5. And now the range has actually stopped at 4. Range function will never reach up till stop value. It will stop one value before it, right? So if you give stop value as 5, the value generated by range function will stop at 4. Now we will take another simple example of range, then you will understand it better. Okay, so here I will write 2, I will write 10 here, and I will write 3 here. Okay, so here you can see the start value is 2, the stop value is 10, and the difference, the step value, is 3. So always the range will start from the start value. So 2 will be printed here. So that will be the first number outputted by range function. Now the next number is created by adding 3 to the previous number. So it will add 3 to 2. So the next number in the range will be 5. Okay, then it will add 3 to 5. The next number in the range will be 8. Now it will add 3 to 8. You can see the next number is 11, but 11 cannot come because our stop value insists that the range should stop at 9, not at 10, at 9. And 11 is above 9, so this will not come in the output. So this is the list generated by this range function. Now the last example, I will just give a stop value. I will give the value as 7. Now this is also a valid range function because I have provided only one value. So this value will be taken as the stop value. And I told you now the start value will be assumed as 0 and the step value will be assumed as 1. So now you can understand what is the output this range function is going to give. The start value is the default value 0, so 0 will come here. Then 1 will be added to 0, so 1 will be the next value. Followed by that you will have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and your list will stop, right? Because I will never reach the actual stop value. One value before the stop value, your range function will terminate. So now we can read the theory part. You will understand what we are talking about. Now start, it is optional. I told you the default value is 0. Now stop, this is mandatory, which means you have to provide a stop value. okay, but it will be excluded from the list. What do you mean by excluded? It will not be included. So that is why you can see if I give 7 in the range, you can see 7 is not included in the list. It will go only up till 6. And finally we have step, that is the difference between two consecutive numbers inside the list. So if I have step value 1, the difference between each number is going to be 1. Okay, now this is also optional. So if you don't provide a value for step, the default value 1 will be taken. All right, you can give a positive number or a negative number for step value, but you should not give 0 for step value. That is illegal. Okay, now we have some more example of range function. So now it will be easy for you to solve this. So if I write list range 10, what will be the output? You can see I have provided only one value, so this 10 is taken as the stop value, right? So you can assume 0 is the start and 1 is the step. So here you can see my list starts with value 0. As the step is 1, the next number is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It will reach 9 and it will stop. Okay, because value 10 will not be included in the range, it will stop one value before that. In the next example, we have given two values, right? So if I provide two values inside my range function, then the first value is taken as start and the next value is taken as stop, and the last value step. Range function will automatically take the default value 1. The output will start with 5 because that's the start value. Then as the step is 1, it will increment one value to get the next number, one value to get the next number, and it will stop at 9. Now the third example, we have used start, stop and step, but all with negative numbers, right? So here you can see the start value is -10. So the first value -10 will be printed. The next number will be generated by adding the step value to the value before that. So I will do -10 plus -1. So the next value is going to be -11. You can see here -11 is coming over here. Now the next value will be generated by -11 plus -1. So this is going to be -12. So you can see -12 will come. This will go all the way up till -19 because we have asked the range to stop at -20. Now this is a sample program where we are going to use the range function inside for loop. So here you can see according to this range function, the value that is going to be generated here is 1, 2, 3, all the way up till 10, right? So when this for loop run, first time the value 1 will be loaded into the variable num, and then I will print 1 into 5, so the value will be 5. So in the output 5 will be printed. Next time when my for loop works, the second value, which is 2, will be loaded into the variable num. So now this print statement will execute 2 into 5. So the result is 10. So 10 will be printed to the output. All right. So in this way, it will load each value 3, 4, 5, 6 up till 10. So you will actually get 10 multiples of 5, like 5, 10, 15, 25, and you will stop at 50 because 10 into 5 is 50. So that's the last value of the range. Now why it go up till 10? Because I have used the stop value at 11. That is why. Okay, and here again see I didn't specify the step value, so the step value by default is taken as 1. So now let us run this program and see the result. Now our program is ready. Now let us run it to see whether the result matches our findings. So here you can see the output comes like this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 up till 50. Now if you want to print this entire output in a single line, you can use end with a space. Okay, so now I'll save it and run it. So here you can see the output comes like this. Okay, so we have printed first 10 multiples of 5 using the range operator inside for loop. Now we are going to study about the second type of looping construct in Python, which is called as a while loop. Okay, now while loop also works almost the same as for loop. All right, so this is going to be easy to you. So while loop helps to repeat over a set of statement as long as the condition that you write inside the while loop remains true. So when the condition evaluates to false, while loop will stop. Okay. Now the programmer should explicitly control the iteration of while loop. So that is kind of a difference when you work with the for loop, because with for loop, the iteration is actually controlled by the elements inside the sequence or string or the range function. But you don't have this kind of constructs in while loop, right? You yourself give the value to the variables, and according to these variables, the while loop will execute n number of times, right? So when you see the example, you will understand. So first we will see the syntax of while loop, or how you can write a perfect while loop inside Python. So to write a while loop, you have to use the keyword while, followed by that you have to write a condition with semicolons. So this condition is same like you have used with your if condition check, right? And inside the while loop, you can have n number of statements which will be executed again and again, and this n number of statement that you write inside while loop, you can call it as the body of while loop, right? Now the condition that you're going to write inside the while loop, it should be true for the body of the loop to execute. So before the control comes into the body of while loop, the condition will be checked. If it is true, the body will be executed. Then again the control will come to while. If it is again true, the body will be executed. And this iteration or looping will keep on happening until the condition becomes false. So when it becomes false, while loop will finish and the statement after the while loop will start executing. Okay, now the condition should eventually become false. So this is your responsibility. As the while loop proceed, at some point in time, the condition should reach false so that the while loop can stop. So if this doesn't happen, then you will go to an infinite loop, in which case you can see the while loop is keep on executing and your program will never terminate, right? So we will see an example of that. Then you will understand what I mean by infinite loop. Okay. Now the body of while loop, I already explained to you. All the statements that you write inside the while loop is the body of the while loop, and this will be executed as long as the condition evaluates to true. Now let us see a sample program with while loop. So this program is used to print first 5 natural numbers. First, I will create a variable count with initial value as 1. Then I will start my while loop with condition check whether count is less than or equal to 5. So I will just write the variable here, and I will note the first value that is stored inside here. So right now you can see 1 is actually less than or equal to 5. So now this condition evaluates to true. Okay, so now the control will come into the while loop. Now this two statement forms the body of the while loop for this example, right? So now I will print the value of count. So in the output, I will see the first value 1 is getting printed. Now after that, I will increment the value of count. So here you can see the value of count now is 1. So I will do 1 plus 1. The result 2 will be stored into count. So the new value of count is going to be 2. Now the control again moves back to the while condition check. So now I will check whether the current value of count, which is 2, is less than or equal to 5. So here you can see again this evaluates to true because 2 is actually less than 5. So I will come into the while loop. I will print the value of count, which is 2 now. So that will be printed in the output. I will add 1 to the current value of count. So the count will become 3. I will come back to while loop condition check again. Now I will check 3 is less than or equal to 5. You can see this also will evaluate to true. Now I will print the count, which is coming to be 3, and now the count value will become 4. I will check the condition again. 4 is less than or equal to 5. Again it evaluates to true. I will come inside, I will print 4. All right, and now I will increment the count value to 5, and now I will check 5 is less than or equal to 5. You can see that also evaluates to true. Again I will come into while loop. I will print the output, the value of count, so that will be printed in the output. I will increment the value of count to 6. Now we are going to stop the while loop, because next time when I check the condition, it checks whether 6 is less than or equal to 5. You can see this evaluates to false. So now while loop will stop executing and your program will terminate. Right? Now I told you about a condition in which if you forget to increment the counter variable, you can have an infinite loop. Assume that you forget to write this line, okay, this last line. Now what will happen to your program? Right? Just think about it. So here you can see, if you forget to write this last line, then you are not incrementing the value of count. So how many times this while loop executes, always the value of count will remain as 1. And when you check whether 1 is less than 5, this will evaluate always to true. So this loop will never stop. It will keep on executing again and again and again and again. This will not happen in for loop, because for loop the number of iteration is controlled by range function or by the sequence. So when the sequence is exhausted, automatically the for loop will stop, right? But when you're working with while loop, you have to make sure that eventually the condition will become false and while loop will terminate. Okay, so that is your responsibility as a programmer. So now let us run this program and see the result. Now our program is ready. Now I'll click the run button. Now here you can see the output comes with first 5 natural number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you want to print the first 10 natural numbers, you just have to change this 5 to 10. So now while loop is going to run 10 times and it is going to print the first 10 natural numbers. So I'll save it now and run it again. So here you can see now you made your while loop execute 10 times. With this program, we are going to wind up this session. In the next video, we'll be discussing about break and continuous statement, which you can use inside for and while loop to meet some special requirements. We have a separate video coming up for this chapter where we will be discussing only programs with for loop and while loop. So see you in the next session. Bye.